Hello and welcome to Workflow Live, the weekly video where we teach you how to automate a process in your business without writing a single line of code. My name is Andrew Dodds, and today we are going to be taking a look at the recently hot off the press released feature from Airtable called Document Automator, which allows you to take all of the information in your Airtable base and put it into a Google Doc automatically, without any fuss using a third-party app or anything like that, like a Zapier or an Integromat. So if that sounds interesting, we're going to take a look. Our use case is going to be for a project management, sort of like weekly update report that will automatically generate, automatically upload back into your, as a Google Doc, into your Airtable base and automatically email itself weekly to your boss so that you don't have to, or to your client. So stick around for this one. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to build it from scratch. All right, so I'm going to first show you what it looks like, and then we're going to build it step by step. So basically, you're going to have what we have here is the project tracker example. We've got projects that are being tracked, and we want to give a weekly report update to someone on our team, maybe our boss, maybe a client, who knows. The use case is yours. Just use your imagination. And it's automatically going to upload that document back here. And so I'm going to show you how to build this automation to do just that. And we're going to build it step by step. But I would like to just show you what the deliverable is first. So let me go ahead and show you what the document's going to look like. And in order to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and run one of these actions, which is to, after the doc is generated, to write the doc URL back into the reporting table. So it's done that, as you can see here. And so this is the result in this case. Now you can customize this a little bit with the view and all of that, but this is what you're going to be getting. And this is what's going to come back into your Airtable and what you'll be able to email out. So this is showing all the projects and their statuses, and it's grouped together along with like the project leads and the due dates. So let's jump into this and build it live. So you're going to create a brand new base, and you're going to select the project tracker template. Okay. So we're going to do that. All right. So we're loading it in here. This color is a little triggering. I'm going to change that. Okay. And the first thing we're going to do is set up the base structure. So we're going to need a reporting table. That's going to be the only additional table we have to write. Okay, so this will be our report table, and we'll say that we have weekly reports. So I'm just going to give them some numbers here. 3. And these need a date, so I'm going to customize one of these to be a date field instead. Okay, and we'll start like it is today. Okay, like our first report is going to be sent out today, so we've got the 21st. So let's say every Tuesday we want to send a report out. Now, the reason we create this is just so that there's a place to upload that document moving forward, so we have the historical record of it. We'll obviously have the email that's sent out as well with it attached, but it's best practice to pull everything back into Airtable when you can. Okay, so I've done that, and we could track some other information here as well. We're also going to need the URL. This is the field where we're going to write the document to. Okay, and you might even call this just like document copy or whatever. And we're going to duplicate this view and create another view. And this is just going to be called the automation view. Okay. So the automation view is how we're going to tell it what record to update. Okay. And what we're going to do here is we're going to filter this view to a condition where the date is today. Okay. Now, The reason we do the date is today, you'll see in a moment when we create the trigger for this, where we say on a certain day, so on Tuesdays, send this out, is that this will correspond to that trigger action every single time, because you're storing the every weekly sort of date here. Okay. If that doesn't make sense, that's okay. You'll see it in action in a moment. And then on the projects table, we're going to create another view as well for the actual records that we want it to find. So a quick tip here is you could set your trigger, for those of you that are familiar with Airtable automations, you could set your trigger to when a record meets conditions instead of creating a view for them, but then it will not be formatted in a way that you want. So if you use a view, you can group it and format it, and that's the way that it will show up in the document. So that's why we're going to use that method. And in order to do that, we'll just duplicate what we have here, and we'll call this automation view. And for this, I want to filter out any status. Oh, one thing I should mention, let's get rid of this complete field. Okay. And we're actually just going to give it a status. And typically what I would recommend for that is a single select. So we're going to use that. And let's just give some really simple statuses here. Okay, and colors that make sense, of course. All right, so that looks good. And we just need to populate this data really quickly. Doesn't really matter how you do that, but just make sure there's a variety of different information here in terms of like making this accurate, right? You can drag some of them. So let's have a few more to-dos, and then the rest of these will be done. Oops, done. All right, so now we've got some good sample information in here for our status. And we're going to filter this where status is any of, which means that we can toggle them on to do and in progress. Okay, so we only want to see to do and in progress, and then we want to group those by status so that it's nice and neat in the report. Okay, so basically what we've done is we've created a report table that has a view for the automation to write information back, and we've created a view here in the projects table that gives us the records that we're going to load into the report. Okay, so that is it in terms of the base structure and the setup. I don't think I've missed anything. So we're going to go straight into the automations and getting this started. Okay. Now, if you haven't used automations before, they're fairly simple to use. It's a drag and drop interface. And the first thing that you want to do is name your automation. So this is going to be called Generate Weekly Progress Report. So we've named it now, and every automation starts with needing a trigger. So you have a lot of options when it comes to a trigger that you can select. What we're going to be using here is for when a record, actually we're going to use at a scheduled time. Okay, so this is actually a newer trigger that you can select. It's pretty cool. It means that we can just say at this time, every week, every month, whatever the interval is, do this thing. Okay, and so in this case, we want a weekly report. So we're going to say our interval type is weeks, and timing, number of. So every week on what day. So we're going to say on Tuesday, because that's today, at 9 a.m., we're going to run the actions. Okay, now we haven't set those actions up yet. And just a tip, as you go through automations, you're going to want to test the triggers every single time to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So the step is successful, and we're going to move on to our action. So the first thing that we need to do is our action is to find records. Okay, and we're going to select the table that we're going to find those records in, which is the projects table. And then we're going to tell it how we're going to find the records. And we've already created a view. So we're going to click on view, and then we're going to select the view that we created, which, as you remember, is the automation view. There we go. And we're going to test that action. And hopefully we get green. Yes, we do. So found records in that view. That's perfect. Our step is successful, okay? And we're going to add another action now, and that's going to be the new Google Docs feature of creating a Google Doc. So this is the document automator piece that we've been talking about. And you're going to select your Google Docs account and select a folder. So this allows you to create a folder. You'll want to create one. This is where all of the documents that you create will be uploaded to. I've got one here right now, document automator. So we will do that. We're going to select that one. And then you can give your document a title. So for this, since it's a weekly report, maybe we want it to be report week of, and we can dynamically pull in the time that this is being sent out from a previous step. So this isn't going to be like really neat because it's gonna have it's gonna look like what you see here. But I think you get the point with pulling dynamic information in and how powerful that can be. And then we're going to design the content here. And so whenever you're pulling in information from a previous step, dynamic information, you're going to use the blue plus. Okay. Now, so we're going to do that here in the content block. And this time we want to pull it from our record search step. Okay. So we're going to pull it from our record search step here. Click continue on the records, and we want to pull it in as a grid. So you can see insert records as a grid right here. We're going to go ahead and hit continue on that. And now we get the option to decide what fields we want to pull in. And this couldn't be simpler. We're simply going to toggle them on and off. So what I want is the name, the status, let's see, the due date, and that should, maybe the client name. That should be good. So that's what I want in my report. I can also say include the link to the view or the record, and I'll go ahead and keep those on. And finally here, I'm just going to go ahead and click insert, and we're going to test that action. Now remember, test every single step, because if you make a mistake, then you know what you have to fix. So you'll see that we've got the green step successful here, and we have our URL that has been generated as a result. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And you could even find that in the folder in your Google Drive now. Look at that, looks pretty good. Okay, so we have this report now that's automatically generating. The next piece of this for us is, okay, how do we get this link back into our reports table? Because we need to be able to see the historical trend and those types of things. And we can't just rely on pulling up those emails. That's siloing the information, and it's off into the email ether. So let's do that. What we're going to do this time is we're going to find a record again, but we're going to do it in the report table. Okay. So we're going to add an action of finding a record, and we are going to do it in the reports table, and we're going to base it on that view that we created. Okay. Now you remember we named that view automation view, and basically that's set to when the date is today. Okay. It has a date. There it is. Report 1 has a date of today. And we knew that this was going to happen because every Tuesday we create a report. And so it's just saying every Tuesday, report 1 is on the 21st, report 2 is on the 28th, etc. So you're just matching that, and it lines up. So we found that. That's great. Step successful. Our next step here is just to update that record. So I'm sure you're starting to get the gist of this here. We're going to update it in the report table. And the record ID is going to be the record ID that we found here in the previous step of finding the record. So every record in Airtable has an ID underneath it, and we can access it right here. We're just going to insert that in. That's the record ID. And the field that we want to update is the URL field. And what we'll do with that is we're going to go to our previous step of creating the file URL, and we're just going to insert the file URL. Okay. So if we run a test here, run as configured, we've got our green step successful. You'll see the URL has written, and we can confirm that by coming back to our base here, looking at our report table and seeing that we've got our linked document right there, okay, for easy access in the future. So this is looking pretty good. To recap, every single Tuesday at 9 a.m., a report is going to be generated based on the view in the projects table that has our to-do and in progress projects, and some of their information around status, etc. It's going to create a Google Doc in a folder for us, and it's going to upload that link back to our reporting table for that given report date. The final thing we want to do is send an email of this report out to a client or whoever it is that we're working with, maybe a boss. And the way we're going to do that is to add an email action. Send email. Okay. Now we can just go ahead and hard code this email. Now, if you were storing people's information in a table, for instance, you could dynamically pull it in based on who owns the project, as an example. Maybe they would just see their own report, etc. There's a lot of customization that you can do here. I'm going to keep it simple for now. Subject is weekly report to review. And our message can be a lot of different things, but ultimately we want to pull in that URL that we had created, okay? So we're inserting the file URL here, all right? Now, a long file can sort of be messy, right? And so one of the things that you can do is use Markdown to make it neater, okay? And Markdown is a language that allows you to do a little bit of changing up how it's going to show up in the actual content piece here, okay? And you can see, I'll just show you the different references here for Markdown. So you can make things bold or italic or strike through or whatever. We want to do a hyperlink. And so the way that you hyperlink to keep it nice and neat is by using brackets and then parentheses, okay? So brackets for the clickable text. So we'll say click me. And obviously you can make this a lot more formatted if you want. And this will put the URL as clickable in the click me. And you can see that if we generate a preview here. Let's just go ahead and look at that. We see that instead of the nasty link, okay? So now every single time this report is generated at its scheduled time, the records will be found, docs created, uploaded back into Airtable, and email sent out. You have automated reporting for this use case, and you no longer have to spend your time doing that. You have won some of your time back, which is the best thing in the world, and you can use it on something more important. I hope that this video was helpful. Looking forward to feedback. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe or like the channel. Everything helps there, of course. And pass the video around if you think you know someone who could benefit from learning what we just looked at. Okay, thanks again, Automators, and looking forward to seeing you next week when we will be doing round 2 of forms. I actually was going to do forms this time, but because Document Automator came out last week, I had to do this because it's been a long-awaited feature in the community. With forms, we're going to look at how you can update information in your Airtable with an Airtable form. And looking forward to going through that with you then. All right, everyone. For now, goodbye and enjoy.